Bright and early this morning, we have got today's big interview is with James Lorimer, who's the DA's Shadow Minister of Mineral Resources. James, I have the privilege of having known your late father, Rupert, who was quite a feisty politician in his day alongside Helen Suzman. He served in Parliament. And it's interesting to notice that both you and Kate, your sister, both also went into politics. Did Rupert nudge you in that direction?
Absolutely not. And certainly that didn't come from the family. It was just, I guess, growing up in that atmosphere. You know, you're part of the conversation, you're following the great game. It's difficult to stay away from. So, I mean, originally I wanted nothing to do with politics. And I went into journalism, which was kind of a mistake because that's the gateway drug to politics, and eventually ended up there.
The gateway drug to the place where it all happens. That's interesting.
Well, you think it all happened, but that's not always necessarily the case.
Yeah, especially where you are you've served in opposition for how long? How long have you been in politics?
Almost 14 years.
And I guess now you must be looking to the future, 2024, potentially coalitions, potentially a different role rather than being on the opposition benches. I guess if it happens, if the coalition or a different coalition were to take over, it would transform your world, but in a way, I suppose, would be why you entered politics in the first place, to really make a difference.
Quite right. And it would be an enormous opportunity because you sit on the opposition benches, extremely frustrated because it's so difficult to get anything done. You know, you're always pushing the levers to get some kind of reaction or indirect action, and it's terribly difficult. And all the meantime, you sit around thinking, well, what would I do if I was there? To have the opportunity to actually put some of that stuff into action would be astonishingly good.
Well, I think the whole country is hoping that there will be some kind of a change in 18 months or so's time. But I was very interested in a news release that you sent out earlier this week about a visit to Mpumalanga, or in particular Emalahleni, or what the town known as Witbank, the center of South Africa's coal sector. How did it come about in the first place that, sure, you the shadow mining minister, but that this area in particular caught your attention?
Okay, well, illegal has been a huge problem for a long time, and I've been banging on about it to universal people ignoring it. And then, of course, the horrific events of Krugersdorp happened, where those women were raped by people thought to be illegal miners. Many of them were. And all of a sudden, the ANC government discovered there's a thing called illegal mining that's a problem. And since then, they have been very strongly motivated to go and get to grips with the problem. So 3 portfolio committees from Parliament, Mineral Resources and Energy, which is mine, also Home Affairs, which deals with foreigners and illegal immigrants, and the Police Portfolio Committee, have been touring the country every weekend looking at illegal mining hotspots. And it has been very interesting. And so this was part of the Mpumalanga leg. Now, this was should have been a great credit to the ANC chair of the committee, because I said to him, look, I know Emalahleni, and if we go there, the department in that province, which is headquartered in that town, is notoriously corrupt. The moment they know where we're going, everything will be cleaned up in advance. And this is always a problem with parliamentary committees. You know, they go there in this huge train of secretaries and security men and vehicles escorted by blue lights. And it's not exactly something that can provide an impromptu view of what's going on. Everybody knows in advance they can clean up. You get a kind of Potemkin-village effect, you know, so that you see things that aren't really there.
Just explain that. Explain the Potemkin-village, because I know you also used that before. It's a brilliant analogy.
It is a lovely one. I mean, there was a first minister, whatever you call him, for one of the czars. I think it was Catherine the Great in Russia a few hundred years ago, and she wanted to go on a tour of the countryside to see how her people were doing. And he knew that they weren't doing very well, but so as to provide a better impression, Mr. Potemkin then set up fake villages, like a film set, full of happy, smiling peasants, so the Tsar could get the impression that everything was okay. And I think that's quite often what happens when there are oversights. Anyway, so look, this department, this branch of the department is notoriously corrupt. Go there and let me guide you to 3 places where we know or suspect there is illegal mining activity. And to his credit, he said yes. However, I don't think the rest of the ANC delegation, and the delegation was overwhelmingly made up of ANC members, because that's just how it shakes on parliamentary committees. I don't think they were very happy not to be in a controlled environment. So we went to one place, which was a vehicle pound, which has some questions over it. We asked some questions. We went to another place where there has been illegal mining, but it's apparently now legalized. And they said, no, we can't go into a legal mine. This is terrible. And we haven't got the right protective equipment. We haven't got protective shoes. It's a working coal mine. It's fairly grubby. And there were some ladies from the ANC honourable members' ranks who were wearing very, very fancy sandals and shoes. Anyway, so there was a great stand-up fight, and they said, right, we're going home, which they did. Thus missing out on one of the smoking guns, or as close to a smoking gun as you can get in that town, which was a great pity. And I was very sad that they'd missed out on that, because I think they're going to miss a piece of evidence about part of the illegal mining picture that's important to know. Because when you say illegal mining, people think, well, gold, isn't it? Well, no, it's a lot of minerals, and it operates differently according to whatever mineral is being sought in different parts of the country. It's a very, very interesting picture.
So you've clearly visited this area before, where the illegal mining is taking place. Why? What's the backstory to that? How did you get involved there in the first place?
Okay, backstory was May this year. A colleague who's a DA MP who lives in the province got hold of me and said there was an issue. There's a suburb called Duva Park, just on the outskirts of Witbank, and they'd been plagued by smoke, coal smoke from burning coal fires, constantly burning coal fires. And that burning coal was set alight through illegal mining activities on an old part of a mining right owned by Thungela now, old Anglo Coal. And it was on the edge of the right. And the reason that it hadn't been mined formally was because it was too close to power lines and a provincial road. So you can only mine up until, I think it's 500 meters within one of those bits of infrastructure. So there was this whole strip of land which had very rich coal underneath. The problem with coal in that area is as soon as you take it out and you expose it to the air, it's very easy to spontaneously combust. So you had these open seams, these piles of coal that were burning, and it was in nobody's interest to put them out. And of course, once coal is burning in a big heap like that, it's also very difficult to put out. And the fumes were invading the suburb. There was that one kid hospitalized. People were getting headaches from the carbon monoxide. It was a bad situation, and nobody was doing anything. The municipality did nothing. The local Department of Mineral Resources and Energy office is just 9 kilometers away. They did nothing. The police did nothing. The mine did nothing. So I went to have a look, and I found they knew we were coming, so there was nobody there, but there were 3 or 4 yellow machines on the area, because make no mistake, these guys are they go with professional equipment. And the whole chain was explained to me. How it works is that somebody buys up end-of-life yellow machine mining equipment, the huge dump trucks and the diggers, and then they rent it out to somebody. They rent it out for maybe 100 grand a month or whatever it is, and the guy goes off and uses that to mine illegally. And with 2 yellow machines, a truck and a digger, it was explained to me that you could maybe walk away with 6 million rand a month profit.
Wow,
Big
but
money.
how do you sell it? How do you sell this illegally mined coal?
Here's a question, and it has no text. You could either hit the informal market, but that's not where you're going to get money. I suspect what's happening is either it's being taken directly to export, and it's being washed somewhere along the way, or it's simply being infiltrated into the normal coal value chain. So there's some slightly dodgy operator who runs a coal washing plant. Somebody turns up with some trucks of coal and says, listen, I can let you have these on a discount. You get to make the extra money. You get to up your production figures. Here you go, cash transaction. So I expect that's how it becomes then legal coal.
So it's got to be formal business that's involved in some way in this whole value chain, because if you're pulling out 6 million rands worth of coal in a month, that's a lot of coal that you've got to find a market for. I suppose that takes us one step further down the line. But just to go back, so you have these coal fires that are burning because the coal's being illegally mined. It's on the surface. People are getting sick as a result of it. No one wants to do anything. Here you have the opportunity. You've got your parliamentary committee. Was that the intention? Take the guys there, show them what's going on.
Yeah, that was the intention, to take them along there, to explain to them how it all works, because as it had been explained to me by people in the area and a mining engineer, just so they could put that in, because the culmination of this committee visiting process is going to be a report on illegal mining to Parliament, which is going to have certain recommendations. Those recommendations one would like to be as comprehensive as possible, and so therefore they need to have as good a view as possible of the whole business of illegal mining, or mine crime, as I like to call it. I mean, because illegal mining has so many different aspects. It ranges from some poor bloke with a chisel and a headlamp torch working in a 3-meter deep hole on Rudaport Road, through to these guys I've been talking about with big yellow machines digging for coal, or further up into Limpopo digging for chrome.
So who are the people doing this formalized theft, as the way you described it? Because if you can pay 100,000 rand a month for a digger and a dump truck, from somebody along the line has got to have relatively deep pockets. As you say, it's not the guy with a chisel.
The guys with just foot soldiers, of whom there are an almost unstoppable number, partly because not only do we draw on poor and desperate South Africans, but even more so poor and desperate people from Lesotho and from Zimbabwe and from Mozambique. And you'll find different groups of people involved in mining the different commodities. For example, the gold mining syndicates in Gauteng tend to be overly represented by Basotho and Zimbabweans, whereas up in Emalahleni, where it's big machine operators primarily, you're going to find more South Africans. The important thing is not the foot soldiers. The important thing is the next levels up. The guys who run the syndicates, who buy from them, mostly they aren't independent operators. They'll work for somebody bigger, and sometimes get even a daily wage from that person. It's usually a very derisory wage, but they can get money. And this ranges, this extends down to the sort of elite foot soldiers, who are the guys who are still managing to work in underground operating formal gold mines. And those used to be in the Free State. And when the Portfolio Committee did pay a bit of attention to illegal mining 7 years ago, and really just clucked and tutted at that point and said, right, well, get on with the police. When we went to Welkom 7 years ago, the police told us they reckoned there were 10,000 illegal miners underground, which is just astonishing. However, this time around, we have learned that has largely been brought under control through a circumstance, which is that in Welkom, the gold is deep underground. So it starts at 800 or 1,000 meters underground. So you have to get an old formal mining shaft to get down there. Otherwise, you don't get at it. And what they've done, and one of the gold mining companies has cooperated very closely with the authorities. They've filled in a multitude of shafts, and not just as they do in Gauteng, put a concrete block across the top, which can be dug around or blown up. They've actually filled in the shafts with rubble, right down to the bottom. And that makes it impossible then for an illegal miner to get down. So how do the illegal miners stay down there? Well, they manage to infiltrate through the formal mines. And the mines have set up all kinds of tight security, and yet people still get down. And when they are down there, there's a whole kind of system that operates where there's a boss underground, and each miner has to mine a certain amount of gold, do some rudimentary refining, depends on the boss to get supplied with food, drugs, guns, prostitutes. We were told the other day that the only 80 miners who are left underground in Welkom probably make about 60 or 70K a month. So that's,
so
that's big money.
Relative.
You're desperate. Yeah.
But what you're talking about here in the coal, in this open pit mining, it's a very different situation entirely.
Very different situation, as it is, as I said, with every mineral that is mined. There's a different way of doing it. The common feature, I suppose, is big syndicates integrated with big crime networks. And these guys don't just strip out minerals, they also rob the mines and other government infrastructure of things like copper cable, steel for scrap. They do a tremendous amount of damage. One of the gold mining companies estimates that in the gold sector alone, the losses to the economy are in the order of 20 billion rand every year. That's just the gold. Remember, we've also got coal, we've got chrome, we've got diamonds. All of these are mined illegally.
It sounds to me like you have this syndicate that, again, getting back to the coal mines, which is able to get both the department and the police to look the other way. Because it's not that easy when you've got these big yellow machines to do them unobtrusively. People have got to be able to see it. And in particular, when you've got people nearby who are getting sick, there must be some palms being greased. Is this the correct kind of conclusion?
That's completely correct. There's no other explanation for it. In fact, a few years ago, when I was complaining about illegal chrome mining up near Burgersfort, because again, the yellow machines were quite visible from a provincial road. And everybody just assumes, I suppose, that they're legal mines, but they're not. They said they were going to organize a raid from the Polokwane office. And no matter how they tried to keep those raids secret, the illegal miners always knew that they were coming and moved off-site. And whether that's leaks in the department or leaks in the police, probably both, because there's so much money sloshing around the system, that's going to happen. And again, to go back to Welkom, there a policeman told us that anybody can and is bought, from mine officials to policemen to magistrates to prosecutors. And this is why there's so little successful legal action against illegal miners, because the entire system is corrupted.
James, how does one deal with this? Let's just say 2024, there is a new coalition government that is running the country. They decide that James Lorimer he knows about mining. We're going to make him the Minister of Mines. What would you do if you were in that position of authority?
First thing I would do would be to talk to my colleague on the police, in the policing ministry, because no matter what people say, this is primarily a policing problem. In the same way that bank robbery is not a banking problem, that's a policing problem too. Well, illegal mining is a policing problem. What we need is a return to something like they used to have, the Gold and Diamond Squad in the police, a specialist police unit set up to tackle mine crime, and mine crime ranging from the small scale stuff to catching the big syndicates. So what you need is police officers who know what they're doing. They need to have a proper investigative and prosecutorial capacity, in the same way that the Scorpions used to have a prosecutorial capacity. You know, you work your case with a view to bringing it to court with the prosecutors. You need to then have trained magistrates and judges who understand something about how illegal mining works and the laws involved. You need to have firepower. As we saw from this week's report about the seizure of about 30 automatic weapons on the West Rand, these guys are incredibly well armed. In a lot of places, the police dare not do anything about them because they might just get killed. So you need to have an arm of the special police unit who's extremely well armed and trained. You need to have special knowledge of the law. So it needs to be integrated with the operations of the Minerals Department. What happens often is that somebody will go and mine somebody else's mineral, for example. And let's take an example of a platinum mine in Northwest. This has happened before. Somebody simply comes onto a mine, somebody else's mine, and starts mining. The police come, if you're lucky enough to get them out there. And then the guys produce a letterhead from the Minerals Department, which shows that, no, there's a dispute over the ownership of this mine, or it's a fake letter that shows they have ownership. And the police just don't have the expertise, and they say, you know what, it's a civil dispute. We're not going to touch it. So you need to have the kind of links to the department, and you need to have the expertise on mining law. Something else you need to have, and this spills over into another of the great mining problems at the moment, is you need to have a transparent cadastral system. What that is it's the online system that shows who has what mineral rights over what area, because we don't have that at the moment. We do, I can do this in Kenya. I can go to any piece of land in Kenya online right now, and I can look at who has the mineral rights over every piece of land. You can't do that in South Africa. Now, there are various reasons. Some of us believe that the old system, the SAMRAD system that was used, was deliberately kept opaque to hide misconduct by people connected to politicians and mining interests. Then if there's this complete veil of ignorance over who owns what, it's very difficult to pin down who's stealing what. So that's got to get fixed as well. So if was I the minister, that's something else that I would do with dispatch. I have to just mention, Alec, that there may have been a bit on that. After going for years and years and years, as I have done in Parliament over the years, there was an admission that SAMRAD wasn't working. The minister at that stage said he would build another custom-built problem. Meanwhile, we have two companies in South Africa, one of them here in Cape Town, who has an extremely effective, proven cadastral system off the shelf, which has been installed in a number of African countries very successfully. Government didn't want to touch it. Who knows why? Anyway, at the Portfolio Committee yesterday, the minister finally conceded that they had agreed to buying an off-the-shelf cadastral system. So under questioning, the Director General then said he believed that agreement to purchase that would be signed by the end of this financial year. That means the end of February. If that is true, and if they're not going to just do some sort of dodgy deal with some Chinese no-hoper, if they get one of the proven off-the-shelf systems and clean up our cadastral system, it will make a huge difference to our mining here. Anyway, that's an important part of fighting illegal mining.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a lot of chaos, but there's always hope somewhere. And that off-the-shelf system is certainly a start of it. If Kenya can do it, surely South Africa can as well. James Lorimer is the DA's Shadow Minister of Mineral Resources, and I'm Alec Hogg.